I'll be the first to admit, I'm not exactly an SUV guy, but I'll tell you what, if I had to move people, tow stuff, I had 50 grand to spend, this is what I'd buy. I'm Greg Cavanaugh with the Gallup Journey Magazine. I'm an amateur car reviewer. Thanks for finding my YouTube channel. Stick around as we're checking out the new 2015 Yukon and Yukon XL. I had the opportunity to drive both the standard Yukon and the Yukon XL you see here. So there's quite a bit of content in this video, and I got to pare it down in some respects. So for some of the details when it comes to, say, powertrain and driving dynamics, things like that, you could check out its cousin, the GMC Sierra, which I drove this summer, as a lot of it is similar. You can check out that video for a little bit more detailed analysis on some of those things. When it comes to exterior styling, you know, it's very much in the eye of the beholder. So I'll let you guys leave your critique down in the comments, but I will point out a couple things. Firstly, this thing makes a statement, especially as an XL. There's no doubt about that. You know, when I come rolling up, I've had several people ask me if I've recently taken a new job with the FBI, which I have not, or maybe I have, but nonetheless, there's presence here. There's no doubt about that. And then secondly, I'll say that whether or not you like the styling as a whole, GM has certainly made it new and fresh and clean. And that is one thing I do like about it. The front end looks really good. In particular, these headlights are gorgeous. I love how there's little like GMC little emblems in there, little details like that that make it look good. And the LED running lights are really awesome too. Same thing in like the Acadia. They look really cool day or night. Given that this is a bit of a land, yacht, barge, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of sheet metal here. So on the side in particular, it's quite slab-sided. You really notice it when you're opening the door. You realize how much sheet metal is there from top to bottom. You know, it even makes these 18-inch wheels here look quite small on it. The back looks pretty good. So the front and back are good. The sides are kind of more questionable. So leave your comments below on that. But again, it does make a statement, and it is clean and fresh and new. So I wanted to address a quick question one of the commenters had, and it was a valid one. And that was, why does this SUV have such a big, wide, low front end? A very valid question. First of all, I want to say this lower air dam here is actually about 9 inches off the ground, so it's not nearly as low as it looks. But more importantly, it's basically completely empty above that. So this is simply for aerodynamic purposes. It's very much, I guess you'd say, disposable. But I devised a little test here that I think is very appropriate for what this thing's going to see. And that is the dreaded driveway curb. Nope, it's not going off-road. This is my neighbor's driveway where I've scraped a number of different vehicles, the front lip on them, and we're going to see if it does it here in the Yukon XL. So as you back out, you'll notice it just misses, and then on the way back in, it also just misses. So it does pass the dreaded driveway test. Just don't go rock crawling with it. So of course you buy a Yukon, and particularly a Yukon XL, for space, and of course it has it in spades. The second row here, of course, is super comfy, totally awesome, plenty of space for 3 abreast. Of course, you can get it optioned up with entertainment systems and all that jazz, but it's nice to have, you know, the rear AC and heat vents and even some the secondary controls here for your passengers. Nice things like that make this thing a killer vehicle, of course, for road trips. Now, some things to note. If you're going to buy a Yukon or Yukon XL to use with a family, particularly with kids who are still in car seats, keep this in mind. I don't know if you can see over here, I have my son's car seat in here. Okay, if I wanted to have 3 kids in here with car seats and not have them all in the second row, but use the third row, you would have to have 2 in the back and 1 in the second row here, because the seats flip forward for access, which for the most part works pretty well. But the problem is you can't have a car seat sitting here if it has to flip over to get to the third row. Now, I did look online and you can get this with buckets. I don't know if that means like captain's chairs where you would have a center access here where you could get to the back. If you can, that would make a huge difference in terms of using that third row. But of course, you lose that center seat. But something to note, if you're going to be using this with car seats in particular, that the seats do flip forward to get that third row access. Other than that, I mean, you really can't complain. Tons of space here. Ah yes, the third row shot. First, let me apologize and say this is a hard shot to get, especially when you shoot these. You know, I shoot these myself. I have no cameraman who can move the camera around. Can't get a tripod in here. All right, to sum up, more space than the Sequoia, not quite as comfortable as the Sequoia, not as good as a minivan. There you go, I said it. If you need to move people in the third row, get a minivan, it's still better. Now it is more spacious back here than the Sequoia. This is 3 abreast and it's bigger in that respect than the Sequoia. But it's a little bit claustrophobic and confined. So now I'm kind of in the center here. You can see, I mean, it's basically just my head showing in the video here, and that's because, you know, the seat in front of me takes up, you know, sits real high. When that other seat is right here is up and that's in use, you definitely feel closed in, a little bit claustrophobic back here. Headroom's fine. You know, knee room's not bad at all. That's not really a problem. I'm 5'8", but even if you were taller, it'd be fine. Toe room is tight. If you just move your feet a little bit, your toes hit the bottom of this seat in front of you, and that makes you feel kind of closed in. Also, the seat is pretty bolt upright. The Sequoias can recline. I'm not sure, maybe this reclines, I couldn't figure it out, but I'm not sure why it doesn't. That would make a huge difference. You're sitting kind of bolt upright. Those two things make you feel pretty enclosed back here. If you can deal with those two things, I mean, you do have these rear AC vents here and all that kind of stuff. That makes it more comfortable and livable. So take it with a grain of salt. As I've always said before, cargo space and towing, get an SUV like this. But if you just need people space without the towing, a minivan's better. A minivan is better. So let's compare the standard Yukon with the Yukon XL where it matters, cargo space. In particular, cargo space when using the third row. Here you can see on this standard Yukon, I have the third row up, meaning in use. And with the bench seat in the first row, you actually can take 9 people. There's 9 seat belts in this thing. So let's pretend you're taking a bunch of soccer players to a soccer game and you have this thing crammed full of 9 people. As you can see, you could get your cooler in there full of Gatorades, and you could probably shove some, you know, cleats and shin guards on either side of here. Of course, the problem is that you can't move this in either direction, because if you do, you can't shut the tailgate anymore. Now down here is the storage area. That's where you'd probably keep jumper cables and other items that you don't typically use, but you could also cram a few more things down there. And this allows the flat load floor once you fold these down. Now, as you can see with the luggage, scenario number 2, this is a carry-on. My daughter's, I don't use, you know, polka dots isn't really my thing, as you can see, Exhibit A. And let's say you have 5, 6 people here. Well, you can see if you're using the complete third row, you're only going to get 3 pieces of luggage with you, and this is carry-on size. Now, what a lot of people typically do is they fold down part of the third row to gain storage and people space. And that works pretty great. Cooler slides in there, you could get another one in there, quite a bit of luggage, and you've still got a seat here, or you could do it vice versa to gain a little more seating, a little less cargo. But this is where it really boils down to the crux of the difference between the XL and the standard Yukon. If you're gonna need this third row a lot, the Yukon XL is really the way to go, because the amount of cargo space that you gain makes it much more versatile without a huge penalty in fuel economy in price. If the third row is more of an optional thing that you sometimes use when your kids have friends over or the like, then you can see traveling around with them down, there's tons of storage back here, more than enough storage for the amount of people you're going to carry in rows 1 and 2. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the key difference when shopping between the Yukon and the Yukon XL. Yukon XL, cargo space. Hopefully you guys can hear this. It's really windy, but I'll do my best. First of all, I love the flip-up glass. Awesome, great for access. Now let's take a look-see. Same shot here as the Yukon non-XL. You can see no problem, but here's the difference. Dun, 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 dun. It's essentially double in the depth department, and that makes a huge difference. This is with the third row up, completely can be in use. Tons of space there. Full-size cooler. You could probably do 3 of them across, and if you could pile them higher if you needed to. Add on there your kind of standard size luggage. Luggage is no problem with this beast. Cargo under here for all of your needs, and also makes for a flat load floor. Now this is where the Yukon XL shines. can barely reach these seats because there's so much space. It'd be nice if they had a little lever there in the back that could make them fold down, but you can see, I mean, you can sleep in there no problem. You know, you and your wife go on a big trip of the Appalachians or something, there you go. No campground needed, no motel needed. Yukon XL, yes. Wanted to highlight a feature difference between that you can get with either the Yukon XL or the Yukon, doesn't matter. This here is the bench, and I also drove a Yukon with the optional bucket seats. And I have to say, this to me makes a lot more sense. The bucket seats are really nice. It feels very luxurious, but you feel like you're losing a lot of space, particularly this space underneath the stereo here in front of that kind of center seat. That is all unusable space when getting the bucket seats. It is nice, like I said, but it makes it unusable. You also end up with a big amount of storage underneath the center seat here, right there. And of course, it gives you that optional seat just in case you want to hang out with your friends 3 abreast. So let's talk interior. It's nice. This one, the XL I have here, has the bucket seats, so it's got this big center console. It looks really nice and it's pretty luxurious, although you're really losing some, I don't know, there's a lot of unused space underneath there. It might be for the amps or something, but it's because of that, there's some real unused space there. But lots of great center storage here under the armrest. Cup holders are easy to use, and there's plugs galore here. USB ports, AC, DC, not the band. And then even what's cool is there's an SD card slot. You can plug in an SD card that's got whatever you got on there, photos, videos, music, and it'll play it here in the center screen. Speaking of the center screen, easily the most cool feature here. The center screen has a button, and suddenly the whole thing pops up, and behind it is this cavernous area, which is essentially like a safe. In fact, you know, in some states it's considered, I guess, illegal because you could put your illegal drugs or your weapons in there or whatever, but it's so cool. Speaking of the screen, colorful, easy to use, great infotainment setup. I really like it. The stitching in here is really nice. It looks great on the steering wheel and the headrests, and I mean, I'm all for it. The one spot that's kind of odd is they put this stitching in the hard hard plastic in the center console just to match the rest, but I mean, it's very obvious it's not stitching because it's in plastic. I'm not a big fan of that, but there's wood grain here in the middle, there's metal up top, looks very classy, really nice. Everything's really easy to use. You got trailer controls right here by my left hand. Nice looking gauges with a really colorful center screen between the gauges. Really, I just have to say it's well done, really refined. It's going to look great for years to come. So let's talk driving dynamics and powertrain. As I said, check out my Sierra video for this really in-depth, detailed analysis, but I'll put it this way. It's very similar to Sierra, and you really only need to know a few things. Firstly, it's very comfortable, rides extremely smooth, and it's very quiet. It feels really luxurious because of that, and that makes it, you know, great for probably long road trips and the like. So, quiet, smooth, that's good to know. Next, powertrain, okay? The 5.3 here is quite good. You know, 385 pound-feet of torque and 355 horsepower or whatever it is. You know, those are good numbers. It's direct injected, and most importantly, it switches between V8 and V4 seamlessly. The only way you know is there's a little spot on the gauge in the dashboard here, one of the displays, it's not even all the displays, that switches back and forth when it goes from V8 to V4. Other than that, you'd never know. So that's a seamless transition, and it's worth it. It returns, I think it's 22 highway, 15 city, 18 combined. Pretty good for such a large vehicle that's also four-wheel drive. Now, to note, I said the same thing with the Sequoia. This thing would benefit immensely from a diesel. Whether it's the 6.6 Duramax, I think that'd be kind of overkill, but still it'd be killer, you know, nonetheless. Or more importantly, if GM would bring back, I think it's the 5.4 that they had talked about making forever, if they'd take that off the shelf and put that in here, that would be an excellent engine. Produce, you know, great torque and good fuel economy combined. It's hard to argue with in that respect. So basically what you need to understand about the powertrain is, yeah, it's not a complete rocket ship. Get the 6.2 and the Denali if you need some serious hustle, but it's pretty effortless and it's really smooth, you know, paired with the 6-speed automatic. it goes about its job as it should. If you put your foot in it, it'll get up and go as you basically would need to get on a highway or pass somebody. It'll be ample power for towing. It's not going to be ridiculous, but it's going to do the job just fine. And day-to-day driving, it does what it needs to do, and it does it well. Can't complain. So when it boils down to it in the large SUV category, my vote is for the Yukon XL. I've driven the Sequoia. I've driven both Yukons, Standard and XL. The XL, I think, is the best. You want a large SUV, get a large SUV. It's got the most cargo space by far with the most usable third row because of that. At 10 grand less than the Sequoia Limited I drove, that's a ton of money, even on a $50,000 vehicle. So again, my vote is for the Yukon XL. With the Navigator, you know, receiving an EcoBoost, I suppose it might be a little bit more competitive now, but it hasn't been upgraded in years. So again, Yukon XL. I'm throwing out an extra special thanks to the folks over at Rico AutoComplex here in Gallup, New Mexico. They've been in business pushing almost 100 years, but most importantly, I drove 3 different Yukons over the course of this test drive. I started with a standard wheelbase white one, which they then sold after I've driven it for a couple days. Swapped that out for the gray standard Yukon, and then after I drove that around a little bit, swapped it out for the XL. So they were dealing with me, you know, on and off for a good part of 3 or 4 days. So they were great. Big thanks to them. Check out their link in the description. Lastly, of course, a big thanks to you guys. I hope I covered the stuff that's relevant, that is not covered in the other reviews out on the old interwebs. I don't know, because I don't watch them. And if I did and it's all the same, or I missed something, let me know in the comments below. Love your comments. Keep them coming. And of course, like, subscribe, share. See you next time. Here's me crawling across the cart after I've set up the camera. This will probably make the bloopers reel. 2212. Can you hear me? Check, check. Ground control to Major Tony. This thing does